Peace, greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abbott, aka Mr. Just the Facts. My brother Dr. Logic, the Liberator, is in the building. I can hear my voice in my ear through the YouTube channel. Peace to everybody. Today, we're gonna do our Juneteenth celebration early, and what I want to do is I want to give everybody just a brief history on Juneteenth. Some people don't know what Juneteenth is. I've spoken with friends that said they've had friends at work that said they didn't never hear Juneteenth before. Juneteenth is a holiday that I've heard sporadically throughout life. It wasn't until I got older that I really started to hear Juneteenth a little bit more. I've never been to a Juneteenth celebration in New York City. So, as I moved down south and I just started to study and learn more, I understood the importance of this particular holiday and being in a what's called the conscious community. I think we really get, I think we get, I hear echo in the background. We got our brother Ali Bey in the
building. Hey, there he is, my man. Peace, bro.
Peace. I think I was causing y'all's delay, your echo you hearing.
Oh, okay.
I had to mute a bunch of stuff, man.
So I was just giving the opening real quick, man. I just want to give people a rundown of what Juneteenth is. So I'm on a wiki page, just basic information. It says during the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation on September 22nd, 1862. It was formally issued on January 1st, 1863, declaring that all enslaved persons in the Confederate States of America in rebellion and not in Union hands were to be freed. More isolated geographically, planters and other slaveholders had migrated into Texas from eastern states to escape the fighting, and many brought enslaved people with them, increasing by the thousands the enslaved population in the state. The enslaved population in the state at the end of the Civil War. Although most lived in rural areas, more than 1,000 resided in both Galveston and Houston by 1860, with several hundred in other large towns. By 1865, there were an estimated 250,000 enslaved people in Texas. So Texas has a very rich ADOS history, being transplanted from other states into Texas. It says the news of General Robert E. Lee's surrender on April 9, 1865, reached Texans later in the month. The Western Army of the Trans-Mississippi did not surrender until June 2nd. On June 18th, Union General Gordon Granger arrived at Galveston Island with 2,000 federal troops to occupy Texas on behalf of the federal government. The following day, standing on the balcony of Galveston's Ashton Villa, Granger read aloud the contents of General Order Number 3, announcing the total emancipation of those held as slaves. It reads, "The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with the proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere." So, I wanted to start off by giving people a basic understanding of what Juneteenth is. This news didn't hit the people of Texas until some months after, And some reports say the Emancipation Proclamation, the news of that didn't even hit Texas until the Juneteenth, uh, when the general rolled through Galveston and read that particular field order. So, one thing I want to show before I bring my bros in, because I was watching this one documentary on YouTube, and they were saying that they wanted the people wanted to dress, and that the oppressive Europeans, the white people, European Americans, aka white people, they didn't want them to dress. They wanted them to remain in tattered rags, etc., etc. So during these celebrations, we began to see our people coming out, and they started dressing like it was Easter, if you will, and they donned their best. And I wanted people to see these images of our people. This is an early celebration of emancipation, Juneteenth in the year of 1900. So this is 5 years after Juneteenth. This is a celebration in Richmond, Virginia in 1905. Thousands. One celebration in 1935, I think it was 70,000. They said it was like a glorious festival. This is Governor Tom Wolf signing legislation to officially recognize Juneteenth in Pennsylvania. This is an important map that I wanted the people to see, because these are the dates of recognition of Juneteenth. So the states that you see in that pinkish color is those states that recognize Juneteenth before the year 2000. So we see Texas. I'm not going to pretend like I know which states is above that. That looks like Idaho. That is Idaho. That looks like Michigan all the way up there. Or no, that's Wisconsin, I believe. And the other one is Florida. I think that's, or is that Illinois?
That's Minnesota, brother.
Minnesota. Okay, I'm not good with all the shapes. I know New York. I know Florida and Texas and California and stuff like that, right? So the yellow ones were the ones that were recognized. The yellow states in that goldish yellowish color were recognized between the year 2000 and 2009. So a lot of different states began to recognize it. And then those that recognized it after 2010, we see several New England states. We see what looks like Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama. Nevada over here in the West. I'm not going to try to name some of those other states. North Dakota, and that looks like South Dakota. I think that's what those two states are. It looks like it hasn't recognized it yet. So one of the things we want to do is push to have Juneteenth, the federal holiday. And I'm going to just bring my bros in and let them go in. I just wanted to open up with the brief history of Juneteenth, and so our people could know and understand that this is, from here on out, something that we must celebrate, and we must celebrate as vigorously as we celebrate the 4th of July, cookouts and the whole nine. If June 19th falls on a Wednesday or a Thursday or on a Monday or a Tuesday, then Juneteenth weekend, the way we say 4th of July weekend. And on those weekends, when we have those barbecues, we should dress down to a T like we do on Easter. I'm Muslim, so I'm gonna say what I gotta say. I don't celebrate Easter, but I know when I was young, my mother did, and we dressed down on Easter. On Juneteenth, we should be dressed down on Easter. Dressed down, period. So I'm gonna bring my brother Dr. Logic in so he could go in, and then my brother Ali Bey.
Yes, good. You brought up some things that just, made me go back into my memory and think about so many things, because I'm from the Midwest. I got family all over the country. So actually the most memorable Juneteenth moment I've ever had was in Minnesota. Outstanding time I had. They've been doing that was back in the 90s sometime. Outstanding time I had. But Juneteenth in and of itself is something so special. And it's not just something to be celebrated, but it's something to always be remembered. because you must understand that Juneteenth was celebrating our second Independence Day. We, as the most American people in this country, we're double American, triple American, super American. Not only did we fight in the Revolutionary War for the independence of this country, but we fought there were in the Civil War to go and free our family, because we knew during the Revolutionary War everybody wasn't going to get their independence during that time. But a great deal of our people had independence during that time and after that time. And they were working. They never forgot they were working, trying to make change happen. But change is hard to make. So during the time of the Civil War cooked up, we had 186,000 of our family members who fought for our own freedom in the United States Army, also known as the Union. We had 20,000 as sailors in the Civil War. 20,000 as sailors in the Civil War. That's 196,000. That's a 206,000. I don't know what the federal census was at that time. You know, I know by the time Vietnam get here, we was hitting around 11,000. By the time emancipation happened, they said it was 4 million. So just we got 206,000 that fought, bled, and died for our own freedom here in America, to go and get independence for their family in the South. Understand that was our family in the South, and we went and fought the bloodiest war in American history to free our family and get them independence too. That needs to be celebrated.
That's right.
But what is never to be forgotten is that oftentimes we couldn't celebrate it then. We couldn't celebrate it then because the hatred was so thick, and the war was still a wound fresh in American history, and that you couldn't, even though you felt it. Yes, I'm free, and you had things you had to deal with and overcome. You was proud of that. They showed celebrations they had in the early 1900s about it, but they really couldn't celebrate it like they wanted to in that time because of the domestic terrorism and the hatred that they had to face during that time. Yeah, they were excited that they were independent and free, but there was a lot of hatred and vengeance that they had to navigate through their day-to-day life. So we need to celebrate for our ancestors and family members who couldn't celebrate when it happened. We got to celebrate now. We got 2 Independence Days. And on the second Independence Day, which is Juneteenth, we fought, bled, and died to get independence for our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, cousins, children, everyone. Because when you got free black folks or free Negroes before the Civil War, and then you got freed Negroes after the Civil War, freedmen after the Civil War. But when you was able to purchase your freedom and go north or far, far south into Mexico, you couldn't take your family with you. So we came back and had a war to free the rest of our family. So, you know, I'm going to come back in later with some good stuff. I just want to just talk about the importance of not just the celebration, but the memory of Juneteenth is honoring the glory and suffering of our ancestors, you know. So we're going to get to it.
That's right. Brother Ali, come in, brother.
Yeah, I've been enjoying the conversation so far, and just like, you know, looking at different things while you guys were speaking. And I pulled up something from a Vox article. Were you reading from a Vox article earlier?
No, I was reading from Wiki.
Interesting, right? They say something very interesting with regards to Juneteenth, right? So let me just read this. I don't have to share it, but the point of what they're saying is important. They say in many ways, Juneteenth represents how freedom and justice in the United States has always been delayed for Black people. The decades after the end of the war will see a wave of lynching, imprisonment, Jim Crow laws take root, What followed was the disproportionate impact of mass incarceration, discriminatory housing policies, and a lack of economic investment. And now, as national attention remained focused on acts of police violence and various racial profiling incidents, it's clear that while progress has been made in Black America's 150 years out of bondage, considerable barriers continue to impede that progress. Those barriers may remain until America truly begins to grapple with its history. There are those in this society that still hold on to the idea that the Civil War wasn't about slavery. It was about states' rights or northern aggression against slavery, says Carlos Cole, a professor of African and African American Studies at the University of Oklahoma and author of the book Beyond the Rope, The Impact of Lynching in Black Culture and Memory. Juneteenth is a moment where we step back and try to understand the Civil War through the eyes of the enslaved. So I think as descendants of those 4 million freed men and women coming out of the Reconstruction period, I think it's important that we take hold of every moment that we have to really look back and reflect on the struggles and the plight of our people. It's interesting because I'm looking at too, just to kind of keep it in context of what the things that we're dealing with in society right now too. All of these different corporations that are feeling the social pressure from these demonstrations, the marches, and everything like that, and how you see Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben's. I just saw now. What's the name of that company? The one with the other black guy that's on it with the oats. The cream of wheat.
Oh yeah.
So they joining in talking about they're going to reevaluate. They're going to reevaluate their mascot, as they call it. their mascot.
That's
you know
funny.
what I'm saying? Because it's a black man in a chef's uniform, and so at the end of the day, it's just amazing to me because when he speaks about how justice for our people, freedom and justice for our people has been delayed, and how the people of Texas found out like a year or so later that the Emancipation Proclamation had actually been passed. This whole idea of delayed justice for us is something that has just really been ongoing ever since, and I think that we need things like Juneteenth and other things to really make sure that we remember, because it's so easy for us to become desensitized and to forget, because a lot of it is so painful in terms of really sitting down and having to live with the idea of how we've been subjugated in this country for so long. And so people want to forget, people want to be upwardly mobile, you know what I mean? All of the aspirations that we have as a group, and we should have, but all of that stuff a lot of times works as escapism. And I think that this country's never really truly dealt with all of the injustice and abuse and mistreatment that our people have had to suffer. So I think what this does, especially now, is help to keep the country in remembrance.
That's right.
And make them understand that these things need to be dealt with. So I just want to say that.
Oh, definitely. Before my brother Where L goes back in, one of the things that I want to do is I want to separate, because we have to, because Juneteenth is specific for ADOS. It's a specific holiday for America's descendants of slavery. And we watch politically how people get in front of movements. Malcolm spoke about that when he talked about what he called them, the Big Six or something like that, when he was going at MLK and them. And Malcolm was going in on that particular speech right there. I never really looked into the particulars of MLK's role in what Malcolm was saying, but that speech was very important, because what the liberal has done was gotten in front of all of our issues, right? We see in the Supreme Court victories for DACA, the Dreamers Act, and victories for LGBT, and riding off of the blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifice that our ancestors, who were America's descendants of slavery, had put in, and really reaped no real reward for, except posthumously when Martin Luther King Jr. got a statue, right, in a holiday, but that dream that he envisioned, it didn't come to full fruition, because we are at a point right now where America is on fire, and that fire has quelled just a little bit, but the embers of injustice, they're still smoldering all around this nation. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to show people what to look for Juneteenth, because I see people and, they want to support, but I'm noticing I've seen T-shirts, I've seen posts on Facebook, and I'm like, nah, that doesn't represent Juneteenth right there. So let's go here real quick. Let me share my screen. So yeah. I want you to look. Let me pull this up. This right here is the Juneteenth flag, right? Let me see. All right, let me get off of that. This is because I wanted it to just open up as the flag. This is the Juneteenth flag right here. It was designed in the 1990s, I believe 1997, if I'm not mistaken. 96 to commemorate Juneteenth. Its colors are specific to our national heritage of this country: red, white, and blue. It's minimum on the white. I'm just saying, right? It's heavy on the red and the blue. But
you got a breakdown on the symbolism?
No, I don't. I actually don't have that pulled up, a breakdown on the symbolism.
I got the breakdown.
Okay, all right. So y'all get into that. I just want to show people what's not Juneteenth, right? Like this is not Juneteenth right here. I'm sorry, that's not Juneteenth right there.
What you pointing at?
Oh man, my bad. I forgot. I got to keep coming out of the.
There was one at the bottom of that screen. It was like a red, black, and green banner with Juneteenth written on it. If that's what you were pointing at, I don't know.
This right here. I don't know what these colors are necessarily supposed to represent outside of the red, black, and green with the yellow. I don't know, but that's not Juneteenth right there. That doesn't that doesn't represent Juneteenth. And I want to go back to that screen. So let me exit out of here real quick so that everybody else can see that we got to celebrate this thing right. Our ancestors fought, died, and bled so that we could get this particular freedom in the Civil War. These images up here are not representations of Juneteenth. Now, this one looks more of like the HBCU colors, and I'm ignorant of what those colors mean, and I'll be the first to admit that. But it still doesn't represent what Juneteenth means insofar as the color coding of our unique Americanism here in the United States of America. This right here, I don't know if you can see where my mouse is pointing, but it's a Juneteenth celebrate freedom. I just clicked on that. Like, this doesn't represent Juneteenth. We love Marcus Garvey. I'm a Moorish American. I follow the teachings of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and in our teachings, Marcus Garvey is venerated as a harbinger of sorts, a forerunner of a prophet, in the same way that John the Baptist is. But this doesn't represent Juneteenth. Now, none of this represents Juneteenth, and we have to point that out. This, the power to the people and the symbolisms is dope and great, but the red, the black, and the green, it doesn't represent Juneteenth. It is a painting over, if you will, of the work that our ancestors put in to get us to the point where we are at now. And I want to bring up one more thing before I go to my brother, Dr. Logic, because we speaking about people getting in front of stuff, right? So
I wanted to say
yeah,
something real quick before you go to him. You can finish your thought. I just wanted to say something
okay,
about
definitely.
that
All right,
flag.
let me go here real quick to y'all's favorite president, Mr. Donald Trump. Here we go. Mr. Trump says he made Juneteenth very famous. This is from an Axios article that was published 8 hours ago. This guy said, let's read the article. It says President Trump took credit for popularizing Juneteenth, the commemoration of the end of slavery in the U.S., in a wide-ranging interview with the Wall Street Journal Thursday, saying, quote, I did something good. I made Juneteenth very famous, end quote. Driving the news, the president claimed that, quote, nobody had ever heard, end quote, of the June 19th celebration before. He planned a rally in Tulsa on that day. His campaign ultimately changed the date of the rally to June 20th, which to me is still a slap in the face, after receiving pushback from African-American leaders around the country. So this shows us that we know what Juneteenth was because you got pushback from African-American leaders. Now, if you're going to say, I made Juneteenth famous or popular or known to people of your ethnic ilk, well, then we can accept that. We can accept that all day. But you didn't make Juneteenth popular at all. So, yeah, jump in real quick, Ali, and then shoot it over to brother Dr. Logic.
Yeah, I would just echo what you're saying. It would be more accurate for him to say he may have made it more popular amongst European Americans who really never gave a damn about any of our stuff anyway. Now, because it's on TV and he's saying something about it, and he was trying to have his rally, his COVID-19 rally in Tulsa.
COVID-19 rally.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But I just wanted to say this about the flag, right? And the reason the red, black, and green flag is not representative of Juneteenth. It's a Pan-Africanist flag. It's a flag that's supposed to be representative of the African diaspora and the unity between African people of the diaspora. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But at the end of the day, that's something that was adopted by the UNIA for that purpose in like around 1920 or something like that. Juneteenth is something that happened in the 1860s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you understand what I'm saying? So this is long before Pan-Africanism and the Pan-Africanist flag even came about. Our people were concerned with American citizenship. So the issue was citizenship for them, freedom, and then citizenship and the rights of citizenship. It really had nothing to do with Pan-Africanism. So I just wanted to say that. So where you could jump in. I just wanted to kind of like push that point.
Yes. So dealing with that part first, right? Before we get into Trump, the Trump piece, dealing with the whole concept of the Pan-African flag, right? We have to understand that there's a reason why that's happening, and there's some contributing factors, but we're going to try to clear that up for you tonight. So our desire to make everything African comes from somewhere. It's not something that has even a long history in America. This is a relatively, historically speaking, new thing that has happened. Or now, in order to feel good about yourself or to feel some type of confidence or some type of race pride, you got to go all the way over the Atlantic back to Africa. But while totally leapfrogging your own lineage and your own history and all the great heroic accomplishments and amazing historical achievements that your own bloodline your family that you can trace back, and some of the names that we mentioned on this show and later shows, because we stay on this period of time specifically, you'll find it, are you related to? You'd be like, yo, that's my family. You'll leap over all of that to make it African because of the poison that has gone into your mind, that you're so ashamed of your own history. The only way that you can feel pride is if you go back to Africa. that is a consequence of a few decades of Afrocentrism, right? This subconscious need to let me just make it red, black, and green, and then it'll be okay. Or, you don't really feel a sense of what our ancestors were truly fighting for. And that's why we've been so stagnant for so long, because we have abandoned them. We've abandoned their legacy. We have abandoned their hopes and dreams for us, and we have abandoned their fight. But it is a resurgence of that consciousness right now. It is a resurgence of the ancestral will that's moving us in that direction. Why you think you're just now talking about Juneteenth in this 2020? So you have to understand this is a special moment in time where the ancestors are speaking to their descendants. And we moving from the American descendants of slavery movement that's pushing for reparations, which is not just the material atonement for what happened back then, but it serves a certain spiritual purpose as well, because no one can truly rest in peace without that atonement. Now, we always talking about RIP and rest in peace, but you got to understand that your ancestors will never rest in peace while we are abandoning what they died for. So celebrations and holidays like Juneteenth serve a dual purpose of celebration and remembrance, so that we understand what we keep our eyes focused on the prize and understand what it is that we have to continue to do here. We have to support reparations, because until reparations is a fact, it's a crime in progress every day.
Right.
You understand? We have to live and face that atrocity. It's not over. Juneteenth is a celebration that reminds us that atrocity is not over. Because, like I said when I first came on, that victory that our family died for to get them, to get for their brothers and sisters in the South, they couldn't even celebrate it like we wanted to. So if anything, I'm totally for celebrating the 4th of July too, and we can do that when that comes around. We got a show for you for that too. I'm totally for the 4th of July, but I'm even more in support of June 19th.
That's right.
Juneteenth celebration should be celebrated with a double intensity. We should pop double the fireworks. We should have double the barbecues.
That's
and
right.
Have double the family over and celebrate, because of our ancestors who couldn't celebrate their own freedom at that time.
That's right.
They would be beat and lynched and shot dead for celebrating their freedom. And Abraham Lincoln gave the Emancipation Proclamation in January of 1863. Our people didn't never succeed from the Union. We had to live under the consequences of the oppressor that's trying to destroy the fabric of the federal government in the United States in general. That wasn't our decision, but we had to live under that. But when our brothers and sisters from the North, and even those of us from the South, combined together, we fought the war that had to happen. The Civil War was the war that had to happen. And we freed our brothers and sisters, but they couldn't even celebrate their own freedom. So we came to do that. And we're not going to kind of convolute that clarity and kind of step on that spiritual significance and that ancestral reverence by trying to paint it red, black, and green. Our people was fighting for the red, white, and blue. And red, white, and blue is all over the world. So don't have no weird type of association. Like, I can't celebrate red, white, and blue. Hell, Puerto Rico's red, white, and blue. Cuba's red, white, and blue. France is red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue all over the place. It's all over Africa. It's just colors. Don't get crazy on us. Understand the historical significance of what we're doing. It's not about the red, white, and the blue as you're having it in your mind. What it's about is the history that's attached to this significant moment. Our people in that day didn't think like you think about the red, white, and blue. That flag really represented freedom to them. When they saw that Confederate flag, that rebel flag, that was just like someone in Nazi ran Germany being a Jewish person seeing the swastika. That's how that was for our family members. You understand? So when we saw the red, white, and the blue, the stars in the states and the Union, that represented a difference. It's not like, we are disillusioned about the actual social and conditions that we faced all over, and the inequities of all this liberty and things that we're supposed to have. We are clear on that. but it was a difference, right? Things that we could do, like be dignified as human beings and have businesses in the North. Our brothers and sisters were still being held as private property. That's what built the war. That's what fueled the war and our activity in the war. So, like I said, let's not dishonor the 186,000 of our family members who fought, bled, and died in the Civil War as soldiers, and let's not dishonor and disrespect or try to cover up in any way the 20,000 sailors that fought in the Civil War to free their own family members, which is our antecedents and our ancestors. We're not going to do that. So,
That's right.
just be mindful. That's what this Juneteenth is about. It's not about Pan-Africanism. There was no Africans that came to try to help us out during that time. I would have loved it if they did.
That's
The
right.
Moroccan Empire was out there. The Moroccan Empire didn't send no fleets.
That's
You
right.
understand? You had the Ashanti. You understand? You had the Ghanaian.
That's right.
They were the traders. They traded us
That's right.
into this horrific condition. And when they had an opportunity, they seen that we were fighting for our own independence and freedom. They didn't send in the troops.
That's
They
right.
didn't send in the cavalry and the Navy ships and say, hey, our brothers and sisters are fighting for liberation over there. Let's go help them out. They said we got our own problems to worry about. So understand, this is an American story. It ain't got nothing to do with Pan-Africanism, and we're not enemies of Pan-Africanism. I was raised Pan-Africanist, and I don't have no problem with Pan-Africanism. But it don't got nothing to do with this American story.
And for my Moors out there, real quick, Ali, I just want to show, Prophet Noble Drew Ali standing in front of what's called Old Glory. That's the American flag right there. That's Noble Drew Ali and the early Moorish Americans. So I don't see where a lot of y'all are getting this garbage idea from. It don't come from this man and what he was representing, because like I said, there he is standing in front of that flag right there. And there's other pictures with the man like holding the flag. You have pictures of him in his office with the flag. You have pictures after they came back from Cuba. This picture right here, this was in his office. He always flew the American flag. And these particular flags were flown so that the people on the outside, if you could see the windows in the back, would look up to the second floor and see the flags, particularly our American flag, flown in the window. Prophet Noble Drew Ali was stressing to our people, don't let these people tell you that you're not citizens. Don't let them do that. So yeah, go ahead, Ali Bey. I just have to give them a shout out as well.
Oh yeah, it's interesting because the brother Malik Zulu Shabazz had made his post about some of the research that he was doing, and brother Deshaun Farad tagged me on that earlier today, and he was talking about how Moors seem to have crafted their doctrine around the idea of the existence of some kind of treaty relationship and treaty protections between Morocco and the United States that Moors in the United States have. And so he was trying to attribute that to Noble Drew Ali. And I was like, nah, that is not at all what he was talking about. His thing was based on citizenship. The man claimed to be a citizen of the United States on the
that's right
founding document for the Moorish Temple of Science. He talked about he put in the document that a part of the mission was to teach the men and women to be better citizens, right? The nationality card talks about being the bearer as a citizen of the United States of America. And so at the end of the day, no different than the freed men and women that we're talking about right now. He carried the American flag. So if you could share that screen, I'm going to show you a picture of some freed men and women from the same time period, like the year 1900. And if you look behind them, this is before Noble Drew Ali in the Moorish Science Temple, but look behind them, you'll see on that tree a picture of the American flag. You see, this is from the year 1900, right? And at the end of the day, This is before Marcus Garvey, this is before Noble Drew Ali, and any of that stuff. So our people again, just to drive the point, our people were always looking for inclusion in this country that they built.
Facts.
Stolen labor and everything else. They built this country. So, like you said, brother, earlier, we're more American, more patriotic than anybody else here. See, unlike the European Americans here, we didn't try to tear up the country. We didn't try to split the country into two different countries. We never did that.
Right.
They did it, though. You know, unlike the Japanese, we ain't never attacked Pearl Harbor like that, but the Japanese did it. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, from the American Revolution to the War of 1812 to all the way up to the Iraq War, our people have been in every war, ensuring that this country don't get torn apart. So we're probably the most patriotic people in this country.
Facts. I think that we are. I really do.
We have to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about it. And, you know, this is a part of the problem. So we talked about how our ancestors were suppressed. I'm gonna share something real quick. And we talked about how our ancestors have been suppressed, that they couldn't celebrate this, and this leads to why this seems like it's some type of new celebration going on. And I see this is what happens when you have such a long disconnect from your lineage and your history. Now you're trying to just kind of have this scattered association with it and just try to make it be something, because you don't have this celebration not been endangered and been threatened, we would have had a streamlining history of Juneteenth celebrations from 1865 until 2020. But because of the subsequent terrorism that our family had to undertake, it was suppressed. So I just want to give an example real quick on what was going on and why there's this disconnect with the Juneteenth celebration. Because not only are white folks, and I truly believe, like was mentioned earlier, that Trump is talking to white folks. He's not talking to us when he said he made Juneteenth more popular than it ever was. In many ways, some of our people, more than I like to admit, don't know about Juneteenth. They didn't grow up celebrating Juneteenth. The brother Ab at the beginning of the show showed the map and showed you historically where the celebrations have been taking place. So there's reasons why that has happened. But for one, I want to deal with two things. I want to talk about the flag real quick, and then I want to show you why, you know, there has been this gap in our celebration of this great and historic moment in our history. So the Juneteenth flag, like we talked about, it was first created in 1997, like Abba said, by a brother that was known as Boston Ben Haith, right? And then it was redone in the early 2000s. And so the Juneteenth flag designer, L.J. Graff, packed lots of meaning into her design. The colors red, white, and blue echo the American flag to symbolize to the enslaved people and their descendants were Americans. You understand that?
Mm-hmm.
You got to understand that. Not Africans. It's to preserve that memory of what we were fighting for, to be Americans in the America that we built. That's the fight. The star in the middle pays homage to Texas, while the bursting new star on the horizon of the red and blue fields represents a new freedom and a new people. That is what the flag is about. That doesn't have anything to do with a Back to Africa movement or a oneness with the Black diaspora worldwide. All those are admirable concepts. That's not what this is about. And everything that we've been entering in with, from the ADOS to understanding what this is about now, is about being specific, right? So we're being very specific when we honor our ancestors, right? Now, let's understand this. I talked about the flag. Now we're talking about what created the gap. let's check this little piece out right. Very important piece. When freed people tried to celebrate the first anniversary of the announcement a year later, they were faced with the problem: segregation. Laws were expanding rapidly, and there were no public places or parks they were permitted to use. We understand the Black codes. We talked about it in a few shows on how we lost the second Civil War faster than we won the first one. So we was made public subjugation. We went from private property to public subjugation. So we couldn't even celebrate. Only a year after we got our independence in the South. So there was no public parks we could have this type of celebration. There was nobody permitted to do any of that. It said, so in the 1870s, former enslaved people pulled together $800 and purchased 10 acres of land, which they deemed Emancipation Park. It was the only public park and swimming pool in the Houston area that was open to African Americans until 1850. So that's what we had to do to even get that happen. To get that, and that wasn't until 1850. Then hold on, what was the date?
Yeah, the sister said, I told y'all at the
1950
stream real quick. She said, I've never seen a Juneteenth celebrated in New York City. And I haven't either. I've never seen Juneteenth celebrated in New York. Like no parades, no anything. So we got to change that. That changes now. That changes now.
Mm-hmm. So this is why you didn't get it in New York, right? Because of this. The domestic terrorism that we had to face. It says Texas slave owners weren't too eager to part with what they felt was their property. When freed people tried to leave, many of them were beaten, lynched, or murdered. They would catch freed slaves and shoot them. You understand? So this is what we were dealing with, and this is why we must celebrate Juneteenth. This is why there's no choice but to celebrate Juneteenth. So that kind of really brings home and frames what I was saying earlier about we have to celebrate this because our own people who had their independence couldn't even celebrate it then. They had to live under domestic terrorism for so long. So we are celebrating for them. And this is such an American holiday. It's red, white, and blue.
That's right. We're Americans, man.
That's
yes,
right.
We're Americans.
Now we have somebody in the chat.
Okay, well, point them out.
You
already know we got to do a couple of these per show. So let's throw this up on the screen.
You know it's so crazy. Yeah, this guy. I seen him commenting because I shared the link in the Black Nation group, and so you know he's kind of like one of those guys that's like a hater. You know what I'm saying? I've invited him to come on the show the last time. I think not the last time, but one of the times in the past that we were on. You know, but these guys are. Go ahead. What is he talking about?
All right. He says, even after saving the Union, even after being betrayed during Reconstruction, Jim Crow, that flag did not stand for freedom. If it did, the lynchings, the murders, the rape, the destruction of African property would not have been done or tolerated under that flag. So get a Jewish person to put on a Nazi flag. Did you hear it?
But see, the Jews.
Who want to get them? Who want to get them?
Go ahead, Ali.
I was just going to say something real simple. This is based on logic. The Jews didn't create Nazi Germany.
Come on, now.
ADOS people created this nation.
That's
See,
right.
like when you go back, like you got to understand something. There's a big difference between Nazi Germany and the United States of America. Our people are foundational here. Like, so this is where the foundational piece come in. Foundational, meaning we were here at the very beginning. And so when you look at someone like a Crispus Attucks, right, who they say is the first person to die in the American Revolution, you got to ask yourself, why did this man feel compelled to actually get in the position of defending the United States, coming out of the colonial era, right? We know that there was slavery during the colonial era, but at the same time, he still felt a sense of allegiance to this particular company called the United States of America, right? So at the end of the day, our people are foundational. We've covered in the past the Declaration of Independence, where it says that all men are created free and equal. Now, what this person, Timothy Witt, doesn't know is that there were debates in the Continental Congress as to whether or not to put all white men were created free and equal. Decided against that, right? They decided against that, and because the issue was, are we going to try to include Negroes in this? It should be about white men, but they decided against that. So they went with all men are created free and equal and are endowed by their creator with unalienable rights, the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, because you had people who could not stand on those principles, it eventually led to the country going to war with itself.
That's right.
Don't think that black people didn't have allies, because we had allies.
Oh,
that's right.
Come on now.
We had allies and we fought. So and some of those allies died in the Civil War.
That's right.
During the Civil Rights era. There was a piece I was just looking at from Malcolm X, where Malcolm X was talking about how right after the passage or right before the passage of the 64 Civil Rights Act, they killed those 3 civil rights workers. 2 of them were supposedly white people. I think one was a Jew, one was whatever.
Right.
They killed them because at the end of the day, he thinks it's completely about race, but at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is we had allies and these people fought and died. You talking about brothers fighting against white European brothers fighting against each other to the point where they damn near destroyed the country.
That's right.
So please, man, they were killing each other too. That's the whole point.
Yes. So I love it when I hear these type of comments, and I know exactly where it comes from when it's framed the way it's framed. So we haven't been able to tell our story for so long. We just react and repeat the narratives of the victor's story. So, but we're telling our own story now because we researched our own story quite well. So when you say that we fought to free the Union, I don't know if you just jumped in on the show, but we have explained that that's not what he was fighting about. That's what a narrative has been told, and that's a narrative that's been told for certain agendas. We were fighting to free our family in the South. You understand that? We was fighting for independence. We wasn't fighting for the Union. You understand? To preserve white freedom and white life and all this other silly stuff that people say when they've been so poisoned by white supremacy that they can't defeat the race classification psychology. You understand? That's all you can see. You've been so poisoned and defeated by the race classification psychology. All you can do is identify everything in your whole world revolves around race. But race was created for you to blind you. So now you don't even understand how to truly identify your enemies and your allies. All you know is race. And that was the purpose of white supremacy creating the race classification system for you. So we were not fighting to save the Union. We were fighting to save our family, who is living under the horrific and hellacious conditions of private bondage in the South. You understand? That's what we were doing. So all of this type of stuff, this type of sucker language people be talking, y'all was trying to, we fought to save the Union and white folks. We weren't fighting to save white folks. We were fighting to free the 4 million black folks in the South. Understand that.
Facts. So, I mean, I hope the brother got his question answered, and
I didn't even see his whole question. Let me go back.
Yeah, I mean, we have another one right here. Let's see. Let's read this real quick. This brother Jamal Alston said, he made in parentheses a parenthetical, requested / asked to be free for civil rights. Why have we not, another parenthetical, demand / take / act fought for human rights? I don't know what human rights mean, but Well, I know what it means. I'm being sarcastic.
Can I speak on this?
Go ahead, bro.
So Malcolm X, this is where this comes from, right? Malcolm X, he's the root of this particular stream of thought. And there's nothing wrong with this particular stream of thought, right? Other than Malcolm X didn't understand how the United Nations World Court functioned.
That's right. Talk to him.
Malcolm X went to the Organization of African Unity looking for assistance with bringing the United States into the World Court and citing them with human rights violations. The African states told him they couldn't help him. Right? They couldn't help him with the Negro problem. They had their own problems.
They have their own African problem.
At the same time, in order to bring the United States in front of the World Court, you have to be a member state in the United Nations. Black American is not a state. Black Americans are citizens of the United States. You can't bring the United States into the World Court. You're not a state. You have to be a member state of the United Nations to bring another state into the World Court.
I gotta upgrade, man. We need some flex bombs going off on the show.
Yes.
We need some flex bombs going off on the show, man. Yeah. So, I mean,
let me get some of that. Let me get some of that. Real quick.
Go ahead, go in, bro.
So he says, when are we going to demand and fight for human rights? And I have to say again, maybe you just tuned in 2 or 3 seconds ago. But after we have explained what we were fighting for, to free our brothers and sisters, mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters from in the South, we've never not been fighting for human rights. When you're fighting to free someone from chattel slavery and to free someone from being private property, and you're trying to fight for their human recognition and dignity. So how can we not be fighting for human rights? You understand? That was the first fight. What Malcolm X didn't really get at, and I don't know if he was had too much tunnel vision on what was in front of him, is that we fought for human rights during the Civil War. That's what we were fighting for. Human rights. We wasn't fighting for civil rights. We ended up getting civil rights in 1866 the next year, and that was a result of fighting for the human right for our people to be independent, to be men and women. That's the most human rights fight that has ever been fought in the history of the world. It was the Civil War in America. You understand?
Right.
We wrote the book on fighting for human rights. When we freed our brothers, and we freed 4 million of our brothers and sisters in the South from being regarded, legislated, and looked at and treated like private property. They were chattel. Do you not know what chattel slavery is? What could a fight to end chattel slavery be but a fight for human rights? What are we talking about, people? Come on now.
And let me say this. They rail against civil rights, right? I know that's because of Malcolm and his understanding of it. But the fact of the matter is, the civil rights laws that are put in place to protect the human rights of the people. So think about this, right? And I'm just go to Title 18 of the United States Code, sections 241, 242. What you're going to find out is that those particular laws were put in place to protect the human right, the basic human right to life of Black people whose lives were being snuffed out by racist whites. Title 18 United States Code, sections 241 and 242. Those are civil rights laws that are put in place to protect the human rights of Black people.
Come on, man.
So I just wanted to say that. Where's Grim at, man? I seen
he said his internet is weak, man. We trying to get him on. You know, this the original
team.
That's
gonna be too fire.
The original team right here. But I can't get him on for whatever reason. Oh, there you go. Hold on.
Yeah. Get him on there.
Him in the building.
All right. Yeah.
So I really want y'all to understand that. And because your story hasn't been told by you, you don't know that. You've been tricked and hoodwinked to thinking that you was fighting for the Union. No, we was fighting for human rights. Why you think Malcolm X just came up with human rights in the 60s? That's not what happened. Your brothers like the great Army officer and leader. I think he was the first black colonel. Prince Rivers out of South Carolina was leading troops. You understand, for the Union and fighting to free his brothers and sisters in the South.
That's
You
right.
had Robert Smalls. They rebelled on a Confederate ship called the Planter, and they took siege of it, and then he navigated it and delivered it to the Union troops, and then they made him the captain of that ship, and he came back and fought for the Union and fought to free his people. And then he, not only that, he ended up after the war, when he got his pension and his money for fighting for the war, he really stunted on them, flexed on them real big, went back and bought the slave master's plantation that he used to be on by, off the plantation. So we fought for human rights. We've been fighting for human rights all our lives. So don't you have to understand that.
Dr. Logic X is on the podium, and y'all better stand down with that nonsense.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, this stuff just fires me up, bro, because, you know, this our family. I don't know how nobody else feel about their family, you know what I'm saying? But I get serious when I'm talking about my family.
All right, Mark. Riverside Church celebrates Juneteenth in Harlem. Yeah. I wonder how long they've been doing that, but that's dope.
Yeah, I've never seen of like, we need to be
50 states, we gotta know.
Through the streets. We need to have some of our brothers with the Union uniforms on. We need to be dressed down to a T. Like we gotta, from this point forward, we gotta be committed to making sure that Juneteenth is a real national federal holiday, period. June 19th. And then that weekend we get to celebrate. If it falls in the middle, you know, if it falls between Monday through Thursday, even if Friday, you know, but if it's, but school is usually out in June anyway. So but I'm talking about the working folk.
Yeah. We're gonna make it happen.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna start circulating the petition so that we're gonna help the federal effort to get this thing legislated as a federally recognized holiday,
right?
Just like Dr. King, this is something that we can do. You just don't know about it. Enough of our people just didn't know about it. But that's about to change.
And so look,
wait, hold on. We get here they go again. My man said we fought for human rights, but accepted civil rights. Hue means different shades or color, right? So I don't get what you mean by that. Like that sounds deep. It sounds slick. It's like saying overstanding instead of understanding, but it really don't mean nothing. Brother, do you know what civil mean? Do you know what civil mean? I implore you right now to use your Google fingers or your Twitter fingers to look up the word civil. Matter of fact, find an online legal dictionary and look up the word civil so you could get a clearer idea of what the word civil means. Come on, brother. We got to stop with this.
Yo, let me tell you something, man. Let me just say this. A lot of people don't know where we actually came from, right? So they thinking ADOS, right? That's a part of it.
Oh, okay.
But they don't know, coming from the school of thought that we came from, that these kinds of arguments, we already done had these kinds of arguments.
Yes.
We done walked over 5%.
We the champions of that era, of that conversation.
That's a fact. Like, we've been through all of the Moorish science. We've been through all of the various schools of thought. So those types of arguments are not going to work with us, brother.
No. This is what's very interesting about what he's saying, and it really speaks to just the fact that people really just don't really know what they're talking about. They're just repeating things that other people have said, right? And it kind of touched them in a certain emotional way that making them say that now. But understand, when you talk about government and when you talk about politics, you're saying we fought for human rights. The brothers broke that down. I don't know why you said that way after we just talked about the actual human nature of that battle and that war. It wasn't about human, it was about human beings. You understand? And getting that human dignity recognized. Which we did.
A specific human being, the one that
very specific.
Here. If you're saying true man, you're speaking about various shades.
Yes.
Any human. Stop it, bro. That stuff don't
stop it, brother.
No more.
and and what you must understand, which is the real, what makes I don't think you understand it, but to us, it makes your statement very funny. Is a lot of hilarity in what you said, because only human beings can even have civil rights. Only human beings can even conduct government in a way that constructs civil rights.
Right.
So you don't give civil rights to people. When you was chattel slaves, you didn't have no civil rights.
That's right.
So what you mean we settled for civil rights?
That's
we
right.
created civil rights. You understand? Let me tell you something about civil rights. We gave everybody in the country now civil rights. There was no civil rights language in the Constitution until 1866. That was the first civil rights language. They didn't even have civil rights for white folks back then. But everybody is talking about you violating my civil rights now. You understand? Because we created that. You got the immigrants getting all of their benefits and privileges based on civil rights that we created in this country. You understand? Right. So there would be no anchor babies if it wasn't for the federal government being forced to legislate uniform language to saying that if you're born in this country, you're a citizen, because they was trying to deny our family members the right to be citizens in the southern states. We created that language. You understand that? Y'all don't be knowing what y'all talking about, man.
That's like this is what I want to do real quick. I want to share something with the family, man. I want to share something with the family real quick. My brother Grimm can't get on for whatever reason. He's having internet issues. I want to share my ADOS history and lineage with the fam real quick. I want to go through my family tree, man, and I thought that it was important. My last name is Way, W-A-Y, and my family is from South Carolina. Both sides. I just found out my father's side through my grandmother goes back to South Carolina. And I remember I just was like, I need to learn about my family in the South. And I just start calling all the ways in the phone book. This was like, man, 9 years ago. And there was this European man that answered the phone, white man, as he's called, Southerner. And he said, I told him what I was doing. He said, well, you must be looking for the the black way. he said, I'm a white way. I'm like, okay. He said, so I guess you don't know how your family got that name Way, huh? I was like, I could take a guess. He said, but you don't know the specific. Me and this man was on the phone for like an hour. So he starts telling me the history of the ancestors of the Way and how their name was spelled in England. I think it was W-E-I-G-H or something to that effect. And he said they came into Boston in the 1600s. And the man, it was him and his wife. I think he said they came over here on a ship called the William and Mary. He said they set up they set up a ministry because he was a preacher. And everywhere they stopped, they would set up a township called Dorchester after the place that they were from in England. Hence, my family's name is Way, from Ridgeville, Dorchester, South Carolina. So I'm going to share my family's. Oh, he said, well, you're not going to like this part, but as you know, some of my ancestors took your ancestors as slaves. He said my great grandfather, Granville, I think it was Granville T. Way. And then he started telling me about the railroads and all of this crazy stuff. I'm like, wow. He just was going in, old white man. All right, so I'm going to share this with y'all, right? So This first one is my great 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 grandfather. His name is Aaron Way, and I have no date for him. I'm waiting to get a hit back from anybody that has some history on him on ancestry.com. Somebody actually sent me that, and that's how I knew someone is married to one of my family somewhere, and they're building their side of the family tree. So they gave me some information to add on to mine. So they had a son. I don't know who the wife was, and his name was John Wish Way, J.W. Way, and he married Crescia. Oh, what was her name before? Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, her name became Crescia Way. Then they had two children, Pearly Way and Ida Way. And I can't remember the Ida Way's name offhand. And they had several children. And my grandmother, who's there, is Bessie Way, on down to my mother, and that's my father right there. And I'll click on the until you have me, right there. Then I have my children, family tree, and my children's mother. So I just kind of wanted to share that with the family, and I implore everybody to do your, look into your family tree. Here's something else I want to share from my family's history. My great grandfather was actually drafted into World War II. This is his draft registration card. You see his name, Pearly Way, Ridgeville, Dorchester, South Carolina. He was 33 years old, born June 4th, 1907, in Givan, South Carolina, country of citizenship, good old US of A. And his wife's name is there, Miss Ida Way, Mrs. Ida Way. And, like these are little pieces of history that we can all see and know that it is not difficult for us to trace our lineage back in this nation, because there were census records and our people were owned by people who had the last names that we have now. So it's not a difficult thing at all. It's not a difficult thing at all. And I wanted to share that with the family so that they could, know that, number one, it can be done. And number two, be proud of our ADOS history, man. We went through, as a group, or if we want to use that term, race, we went through a severe period in our lives, and we're still going through some things. But I mean, I can't think of anything worse than being enslaved at the hands of a wicked man who today will shoot you down in the street for no reason at all. And if he'll do that today, imagine how he was when he owned our ancestors. And not just him, they're women as well. There's a book called They Were Her Property. I have it on Audible. I haven't listened to it yet. Yvette Carnell did a book show on it where she and the callers were reading excerpts out of it. And it was speaking to how wicked their women were. So they were Gertrudes back in those days. Today we call them Karens. And one story that was told during the show was how something happened with one of the little enslaved girls, and I think she dropped something. No, she stole a piece of candy. A little kid. We desire sweets. We hooked on that stuff. And the mistress, the female slave master, made the little child, the enslaved child, the so-called Negro child, place her face under the rocking chair. And she rocked back and forth in the rocking chair until the child's jaw broke. Damn near broke off her face. So these are some of the stories that comes from a book entitled They Were Her Property. And it details and recounts some of the cruel things that these Europeans or so-called white people have done to our people in this nation.
Yes. And I'm glad, brother. I think that was a real crucial part of the show that just happened. The brother going into his family lineage. People think we don't got no real history in this country. For real, they really think that. When we start talking about lineage and stuff, that's like we're at least we sound like wizards and some weird stuff. Lineage, we've been without real specific bloodline lineage talk and acknowledgement in our circles for so long. People that the disconnect is so real. What they cut us off from is so severe. But when now the brother is saying like he's tracking his family members down. This is I loved it. I loved that when he was going through his line. This was my Aunt Ida, and this was older way, and the older way, and the older way, and the older way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is so powerful. We have to understand, like, that's what we need to be doing. That's what this ADOSness and this being foundational is about. Rooting yourself into America in a very serious way so you know how to have this American conversation. Mm-hmm. So we know our people is the DNA that makes America. We were the bodies that built America and created America's wealth. And we fought in every war America had. We fought in the first independence to make America a reality. We fought in the second war for independence for our brothers and sisters in the South. We are changing. We're not changing the narrative. We're telling our narrative. Again, I got to be redundant with this. There was two Americas Dr. King talked about. So you had our European Americans. They were definitely fighting to preserve the Union. We were fighting to free our family. Understand that difference.
That's right.
I need you to take that away from this show tonight. We was not. That's not our narrative that you keep repeating to people. That's what Union soldiers from white families were fighting for, to preserve the Union. They were not fighting to free us. Listen, I worked at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Museum and Library, and you can go through different exhibits, and they will have soldier accounts of white folks telling you, I ain't fighting for no niggers, and these is Union soldiers. They wasn't fighting for us. We were fighting for us.
We was fighting for us.
We was fighting to free our people. They was fighting for something else. So understand when your own story is being told, and know what your narrative is of this American history and this American story. You got to tell your own story in this. What we've been doing is repeating their story, his story. I've heard that said, y'all been telling his story. It's time to tell our story. And it's right here in America. You got to understand that.
And they named it. Let me say, I got to cut in real quick. If they named it history, right? Let's just say there's no etymological trace. And they named it history. Aren't they saying it's his story? I'm just saying. Aren't they saying that? Like, let's just be real about that.
For real. So now Abba talked about his family from South Carolina. On my father's side, I'm from Mississippi. And on my mother's side, my mother's grandmother's grandmother was born in 1834 on the Purdue plantation. It was a chicken plantation and a chicken farm. It produced the Purdue Chicken Company, right? Abba, I remember the story you was telling, and I remember you was telling it to us like around last year sometime. And didn't he say that your family was building the railroads?
Yeah, he said they were slaves, and they helped build those railroads in the South. That's right.
It's important to know.
Wait. He was specific too.
Yeah.
Northern, what was it? Today is called, I think it's called Suffolk Northern. I looked it all up. It was a railroad company. I think it's called Norfolk Southern today. But back then it had a different name. So when he told me, I would just start taking notes. I'm like, okay, hold on, and I'm still looking. I'm like, oh, this company is worth $1 billion. I'm like, they gotta be in this reparations lawsuit. Yeah,
that's right. See, so that's what we gotta start. This is what y'all need to do. And hopefully this Juneteenth stuff is something that makes you remember to go do it. We need to tie ourselves back in. This is what we need to be doing. We need to be focusing on who was my people in them days? We need to get your reparations portfolios and reparations packets together, because we're going to win reparations. We're going to get that done, just like we got abolition done, just like we got the civil rights done. We're going to get reparations done too. You want to be qualified. Don't wait. Don't wait till we get it passed, and now you're trying to get your information together, and you running here and there. Get it together now so that you can be in front of the line and not the back of the line.
That's right. There's a issue that someone raised with regard to the so-called 1870 brick wall that African Americans often run into when doing their research through census records. And one of the points that this person was trying to make was that the 1870 wall blocks us from being able to determine whether or not we actually come from slavery or not. Now, this was somebody that is what I would call an anti-reparationist, an ADOS hater. This person has a serious problem with Yvette Carnell. A lot of these people have problems with her, right? But in any case, this person was talking about how stupid it is for us to be making claims about lineage. But here's my thing about the 1870 brick wall that we often do hit going through census records. On the contrary, the 1870 brick wall to me is a strong indicator of slave ancestry. So for instance, let me explain what I mean. If you can find somebody in the 1870 census that was 30 years old, but you can't find them in the 1860 census at the age of 20 or somewhere around 20, that's a strong indicator that that person was more than likely enslaved in 1860. Remember, 1865 is when the 13th Amendment is passed, right? Abolishing the institution of chattel slavery. So 1860, 1850, 1840 census, these census records only have Europeans, and I think in the 1850 or 60 is when they start to name the head of household in black households where there were free blacks, but they wouldn't name everybody. So if the man was free, he would be named, and then the other people in his family would be enumerated like they were on slave schedules previously. So the point is, if you can't find somebody in 1870, I mean, if you find them in 1870, you can't find them in 1860, that's a strong indicator that you come from slave ancestry. So don't let stuff like that discourage you, because I've seen a number of people raise that issue, and this one person in particular. So I just wanted to throw that out there, along with the fact that along with census records, you also have your public libraries in certain towns, you know, county records and so forth that can help assist with locating family members and stuff like that there.
Yes. I believe my brother is such a professional. But I believe that particular one who holds this weird position, this very problematic position, I believe he's a professor out of Howard University, and he's anti-reparations. Can you believe that? He works at a HBCU created by a general who was the head of the Freedmen's Bureau. The school's named after him, Howard University. And this man's anti-reparations. Can you believe that? I think I know what his name might be. I think his name is Professor Daryl Scott. Could that be him?
Is that his name?
Professor Daryl Scott,
Ding,
an
ding, ding.
anti-reparations professor at a HBUC. Ain't that something?
That's something. That's something. He's anti-reparations. He's pro Confederate statues and monuments and streets.
Yes, let's talk about that.
It's the weirdest thing. You know, I have raised the issue because of the online dialogue with Dr. Darity, where Darity brought up de-Confederatization.
Yes.
In a similar manner that you had denazification in Nazi Germany. So denazification was when they were removing things that were put up or erected during the time of what they call the Third Reich. So you had the SS symbols, you had streets named after Adolf Hitler and other ranking members of the Nazi crew and statues and everything like that. And so when the United States and other United Forces went in there, they started to take these things down. And so what I was suggesting is like, yeah, this country does need that, because, I mean, just coming off of what Dr. Daddy was saying, this country does need a de-Confederatization. And so, his position is, we could keep those things for the purpose of education. I'm like, we got textbooks, man. Take a picture. You don't listen. Take a picture.
Yeah.
Take a picture. You don't need those statues. It's like, I don't know. Go ahead, bro.
No, and that I'm so glad you brought that up. That's such a great way to look at this, right? It's just to get people to understand it. What like the delay, like you said earlier in the program, I think, or maybe it was Abba, that for our people, justice is always delayed. So what you're seeing now with the deconfederatization of America, with pulling down the monuments and renaming military institutions and bases and things of that nature, highways and things like that, it's just the delayed justice that should have happened after the Civil War.
That's right.
This is connected to Juneteenth. And it's phenomenal that it's even happening during the Juneteenth time, because we won the war. The Confederates lost. We won the physical battle. We won the military battle. So they don't get to get military statues erected. They shouldn't have got to get the bases named after them. We should have got the bases. We should have got the statues. Right. We should have got the war heroes, because out of the physical battle, we won. Now, we done shows, we done told you that all besides the physical battle, we lost. But the militarily, we won. So we understand that. So now imagine this real quick, if you will. If the Jewish descendants of Nazi Germany having to go to high schools named Adolf Hitler High, Heinrich Himmler Elementary, the Gestapo Investigation Academy, what the Joseph Goebbels Film Institute. What kind of sense would that make if you still had Nazi flags waving on top of state buildings in Germany? Don't you think that would be absolutely crazy? Don't you think the Jewish descendants would have a serious problem with that? That's the same way we feel. Just how Adolf Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, and all of them were the axis of evil. Jefferson Davis and General Lee and all of those Confederate devils is the American axis of evil. And we fought and defeated them militarily. Our family members did that. We went over the numbers. By the hundreds of over 200,000 of our brothers and sisters fought that beast, and we beat that beast, and we freed our family. So we deserve to get the monuments taken down, and we're the ones that should have the schools in our name and the military bases in our name, because militarily we whooped them and made them quit.
That's right.
Appomattox.
That's right. So I mean, we got our point across. Anybody? I want to Josh wanted shout out to our brother Josh. He didn't come on tonight, but he had something that he wanted us to show on the air real quick, and I want to play that real quick. It's a video. I think I've seen this. Let me see. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. I want to play this. He wants us to speak to this. I seen this earlier, but all right, let's get into this. Let's play this real quick. Oh, hold on. I forgot to share the audio.
Yeah.
What would have happened to my people
I just did. So
had the South won?
I have no idea. No.
What would have happened to my people had the South won?
But that's not saying
had the South won, they would have been shipped back to Africa, because Lincoln said that he wanted to do that. Exactly. He is on record saying had the South won.
Hold on. Think common sense.
Was on its way out as it was.
What would have happened to my people had the South won?
My ancestors.
But slavery would have died by
Hold
1890.
I'm answering your question.
My people had the South won.
Hello, I'm answering your question.
What would have happened to my people?
My ancestors were dirt poor.
This is not a dialogue.
Hold on. No.
What would have? This is a very simple question.
Okay.
The answer is they would have remained in slavery. The answer is they would not have been free.
The problem is
That is the answer.
That's the answer. That's the answer you're wanting. That is the answer that you're wanting.
You are attempting to rewrite history.
No, we are not trying to rewrite history. You're the
Lincoln
one
is
changing
on
it.
record saying this.
Yes.
That he would ship all Africans back because they were not equal. Right?
Thank you.
Lincoln said this because he was a tyrant.
Thank you.
You get the partial answer.
Can
You
I-
walk off.
Yeah,
Hey.
of course.
Okay,
Because
like I was
you're going
saying.
to construe everything we said. They were not equal. Correct. We were not equal.
We
So
didn't say
Lincoln
that.
said that.
Lincoln, you're
My
great
family did not
emancipator.
say that.
You're
My
great.
family fought side by side with
Lincoln or not?
No.
So why do you carry that flag?
Because this is my heritage. My family fought to save their farm under this flag.
Who was
My
working that
family
farm?
Who was working the farm? They were poor. Do you know how much a slave cost back then?
Oh, I wish I was in the land of cotton. No times there are not forgotten. Look away. Look away. Look away, Dixieland. Well, I wish I was in Dixie. Hooray! Hooray! In Dixieland, I'll take my.
All right, let's stop that. So we see, I mean, that was crazy. At the end, everything they said was crazy, but the brother wanted us to address that. And I really I want to touch on the end. And I want to say this too, how they carry those Confederate flags, Juneteenth, the Juneteenth flag must be that for us.
Yeah.
Not the red, black, and green flag. I'm sorry, Pan-Africanists. This may offend you, but we got to get that flag up out of there. We got to carry that Juneteenth flag the way they carry that Confederate flag, and we got to stop singing "We Shall Overcome." It's time for us to come up with a new spiritual.
Yeah. Stop that. Stop that. We shall overcome. That is also the byproduct of a false narrative of someone else's narrative, and you're not singing your own narrative.
Mm-hmm.
With these goofballs, nobody in this video really knew what they were talking about. It was just a sad part, and it made it ultimately hilarious. And that is a funny video.
It is.
You understand? So
it is funny.
No, but no one knew what they were talking about, right? The question was a very good question. What would have happened to my people had the South won? That's a question that we can delve into. We've talked with it in great length on many occasions. But the other part, when the fat boy was talking about Lincoln was a tyrant, he would have shipped you all off to Africa. So the proposal of what he's talking about in that video was Lincoln had a proposal to create a colony in, I think it was Libya, or that he wanted to create a colony, and he was just simply wasn't
just there. I believe South America
simply
as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes, but
he was saying either or. I think he said it could be South America or Africa. I think it was both, from what I remember. But go ahead, bro. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, what I remember is it was a specific place, and I believe it was Libya or Liberia, if I'm not mistaken. And he was saying if this would make, he said it in a conversation. This was never policy that he was moving. It was an option that he was leaning towards, saying because his mind focus was to save the Union no matter what. So he was like, if this could solve the problem, we will use our international diplomacy and our money and everything else to try to. He was like, because he's like, are the black folks the issue? We'll get them and move them out of the country if you want to. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But that also, let me frame this for you Pan-Africans, right? This might blow your mind. Marcus Garvey's Pan-African movement was not the first. This back to Africa movement was not the first. Prince Hall started the first petitions for a Back to Africa movement before Marcus Garvey did.
Thank you.
You understand?
Who you mean that Mason Prince Hall, the Freemasonic brother?
Absolutely.
That's
absolutely who I mean.
That foundational Black American who was not
foundational. Yeah. So yeah.
Straight up.
So a lot of stuff just happens because we just don't know enough about our own history. And so that wasn't the first Back to Africa movement. So Lincoln was really going off of a lot of those echoes and was like, well, we can make that happen for you, if that's what y'all want. But we showed them that that's not what we want. And then I promise you, it would be money well spent if you went to the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Museum and Library. They have an excellent exhibit where you can hear real live accounts of people saying, I'm not going. They got ADOS, they got freedmen saying, I'm not going back to no Africa. I'm an American. We fighting for America. I worked in this museum, you understand? And I've seen these things 100 times, and it's so good. And it gives you a sense of pride because you was like, you know what? Our people was fighting for our own freedom. They went and joined the Union armies to go and free their family. So every man who could struggle free, every woman who could struggle free, they was enlisting in the army. You understand that? Them was soldiers. They wasn't escaping the freedom so they could do for self. That's not what they was doing. They was escaping the freedom so they could fight for their family, to free their family. Boy, y'all don't know y'all own history, man. We got some superheroes.
Ali, did you want to touch on that?
Yeah, Josh put something in the inbox. He said, don't forget that he offered the South compensated emancipation and not one representative from a single Southern state would even take a meeting.
Exactly. Thanks for clearing it up in the chat. I didn't know if it was, I couldn't remember if it was Liberia or Libya, and it is Liberia.
Yeah. I want to, just for y'all know I got to do this for my people that's in the Moorish movement as well. I gotta throw the man up in there real quick. I gotta show y'all what Noble Drew Ali said about Back to Africa, right? So this is what Noble Drew Ali taught. He said, let me see, where do I want to start from? It is most earnestly hoped that the Moorish Science Temple of America will not in any way be confused with any Back to Africa movement. Such is not important insofar as American citizens of our group colonizing Africa are concerned. We of the Moorish Science Temple of America, like countless other American citizens, know that we must live together here in America in harmony, friendship, and goodwill, whatever our race and creed may be. So I just want to read that for them people that just be talking all this other stuff and don't understand the Moorish movement and how the things that Noble Drew Ali was teaching and pushing in our citizenship differs than what you hear from most of these people out here.
Yes,
it's a fact. It's a fact. That's an actual fact that I actually brought up on Malik Zulu Shabaz's thread earlier today.
Malik Zulu Shabazz is corny, man.
Same exact point.
Just another dude with preacher man, Nation of Islam style preacher man hype. He's corny to me. Corny.
I'm glad we brought up this Back to Africa movement because I've been seeing quite recently.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Being bled into the subject and the concept of Juneteenth. In the midst of this, we've had this reemergence and this resurgence of the Back to Africa conversation. Ghana, come back home and call it. Like, what are we talking about? You understand? So listen at this, right? So Ghana has been one of the most vocal in this return home type of movement. Right? Let's talk about that. So, unless the Ghanaian government acknowledges its role as the slave trader, you understand? We've been waging war and fighting against the slave owner and the slave master in America, but in the midst of that fight, we've forgotten all about how we got in his hands and in his possession in the first place. And that was because of the slave trader who was heavily and concentrated in Nigeria and Ghana in more places, but specifically what I want to talk about right now in those two places, right? In the Dahomey, in the Benin, in the Ashanti. You know what I'm saying? So the Ghanaians, these people were stealing and trading off our blood relatives, you know, destroying Pan-African. Where was Pan-Africanism then? When they was trading us to Europeans for gold, rum, guns, gunpowder, and things like that, right? And then during all of that time, it was not unknown the kind of suffering and the horrific, inhumane treatment that we were undertaking here in America. The Moroccan Empire didn't send no ships to come and save us. They said, just don't treat my subject like those niggas. That's what they said. The Nigerian government didn't send those ships and say, stop, we sorry for trading our brothers and sisters. We want them back. They didn't say that. They didn't do that. The Ghanaian government didn't do nothing either. So what we have to understand is, go ahead now, come on.
Let's be fair, because there was no Ghanaian government. There was the Ashanti Empire.
The Ashanti Empire.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes, now known and referred to as the Ghanaian government. You understand? I think y'all learned a little bit of something from us on that fighting for independence thing. But we're gonna keep going. Y'all didn't come in. There was no Pan-Africanism coming from the East. We created this Pan-African concept, this long lost romantic love for Africa. That has never been reciprocated. There has never been any tangible, materialized international network of Pan-Africanism. There's no political system internationally. There's no international economic system. None of that is tangible that we can access. There is no African investment in the descendants of American slavery. They're not interested. There is no, and I understand that all of them are not like this, and some of them have tried to do some things and it's been blocked. But there has been no collective African effort to create any international export, import, exchange, no type of uplift in that way. You must understand that this is a romanticization that was born out of Afrocentrism. We romanticized that history because we was ashamed of our own history, you see. But for specifics, if the Ghanaian government, before y'all end up going over there, some of y'all on this show got a little bit of money and you might say, I'm out of here. But before you do that, understand, it doesn't make sense for the Ghanaian government to be talking about return home when there ain't no home for us to return to. If the Ghanaian government isn't talking about specific set-asides for American descendants of slavery, what are we going over there for and what are we talking about? If there isn't any government land grants being issued out specifically for us, if there isn't any government subsidies so we can build on the land and so we can mechanize the land and so that we can have a real economic position in Ghana, there's no reason for us to go over there. If the government's not saying we're going to create some type of political instrument or some type of political relationship to where you can do either government to government relationships, or that we're going to create some political representation for y'all over here. How are you going to go and leave America and go to Ghana and you don't even have no political representation over there? That doesn't even make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
We have to understand these things got to be real before we start entertaining.
That's right.
And that's just another trick, man.
That's right. We're gonna wrap it up soon. Ali, if you had anything to add, just let me know. I want to read something real quick from.
Nah, you can go ahead. You can go on.
All right. So I want to read something from this paper, Juneteenth and General Order Number 3. This is from the Galveston Historical Foundation. And it reads, it says, let me see, make sure it's blown up on this screen as well. It says, the old plantation melodies were transformed into a new song and the sunshine of the dreams that once dwelt in their hearts burst full and fair upon them as they both felt and realized the fullness of the freedom that is now theirs, not only to enjoy, but to perpetuate. The conclusion of the day went out amid the pleasures that always cluster about the ballroom. And if memory of olden times came back from the ringing shout of the dancers as they break down, was getting the benefit of their best licks, it is to be hoped that the contrast suggested more of pleasure than regret. The colored people of Galveston certainly deported themselves creditably in celebrating their 4th of July. This comes from Flake's Bulletin, June 20th, 1878. The article reads, when the above was written, the newspaper was also printing wire reports from across the state devoted to emancipation celebrations in Brenham, Marlin, Liberty, Bastrop, and elsewhere. African Americans throughout Texas observed June 19th with parades and picnics, speeches, and dancing. In many communities, groups brought their own land for this and other events, often naming these tracts Emancipation Park. So we had people that were buying up plots and acres of land just to call those places Emancipation Park, where they had these Juneteenth celebrations at. People, we have to get back into this history. My brothers was just going in on Pan-Africanism and the RBG thing. We respect it, but we respect it from a distance because it is really inconsequential to our plight here in America and what needs to be done for us. We have to get back into our Americanism. We as a tribe, as the people who are America's descendants of slavery, are a unique amalgamation of different African tribes who were enslaved and brought over here on slave ships. History shows that some of us were in fact over here, but guess what? They got enslaved too. They were put in chains as well. So it didn't matter anymore. And this is what ADOS is. And we have to get back into that. We have to get back into that. So I'm going to close it out. If my brothers had anything else they wanted to share real quick, yeah, the floor is y'all's. Want to close out?
I would just say good show, man. I wish we had a little bit more time. It's all good though. I appreciate y'all as always, man. That's about it from me, fam.
Take care, brother. Same here. Same here.
And you know, just again, remember that Juneteenth is an American story, and please understand that. I hope we kind of fleshed a little bit of that out for y'all tonight. Hit the like button, subscribe to the page, share it with your friends and family. Share the information with your friends and family, you know, and really understand that Juneteenth is a very special moment in our history, in our lineage, and that was our family that had to go through that. So, and until next time, you know, we always gonna be bringing that fire. And tune in. You know how we get down every Tuesday and Thursday. You know we'll be here at 8:30.
Definitely, definitely. So again, we're gonna leave you with the mantra of the show, and that is: don't just fight the power, become the power, and then you will have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace.
Peace.